So when you are constantly saying that it's not about race, it's about race. At that point, all you're trying to do is deflect from the obvious. Albertville, Alabama. It's a small town with a big problem. It's white, but it's getting browner now. Of course, that's not the problem. It's the racism around that. That's the problem. And probably no one's surprised. Albertville has a history of racism. In the 1830s, the Cherokee were cleared off the land as part of the Trail of Tears. And more recently, it's a sundown town where there were signs that said N words, don't let the sun go down on you. Now, Albertville is also very poor. About 30% live below the poverty line. And poor whites, and racism, it's a surefire combination and ripe for the political rhetoric of the past as well as the present. Albertville also has a poultry industry. And the first wave of immigrants that came in were Hispanic, taking these white jobs, although these weren't jobs that whites wanted, but don't let that get in the way of some good old-fashioned racist animus. Now, the second wave, the more current wave of immigrants that have come in, have been Haitians. And in response to these newcomers, a group called Concerned About Albertville was formed. And on the surface, it seemed like it was a simple call for community dialogue. But as conversations unfolded, the underlying sentiment was clear. So, one deleted post from their Facebook page read, "If they are coming from Haiti, they are gang members and the ones they put out of the prisons. Who knows? They are letting anyone come. Could be the worst of the worst. They act like it." And to anyone who's listened to former President Trump over the years, that's exactly the language he uses. Immigrants are criminals, they're rapists from insane asylums, poisoning our blood, and so on. Now in Albertville, they had this public hearing on August 13th where residents voiced their concerns. That's when it got really interesting. See, one woman said, "The issue today is the mass migration coming here and what we're going to do about it. We have to cut off the housing, and that's going to be number one." And then a man echoed her saying, "If you stop the housing, they won't bring them here because there ain't nowhere for them to live." Close quote. But folks were just getting warmed up. Because then this guy says, "I'm going to tell you something else. I've been to Haiti." Probably hasn't. It's got a smell to it. These people have smells to them. They don't assimilate. They are not here to be Americanized. It should be noted as well that this self-appointed group patrols neighborhoods and searching for zoning violation by immigrants and reinforcing their beliefs that these newcomers ain't like us. But I want to come back to this. These people have smells to them. These people. I lived in Russia for semesters, 30 years ago in college. And at the time, most Russians didn't use deodorant back then. And it was bad. But of course, Russians aren't these people. These aren't these people that they're talking about. Because these are Europeans, right? Just like Europeans, this is a European thing. Europeans not shaving their legs if you're a woman. That was a common stereotype of Europeans in the past. I don't know about today. This rhetoric of smell was common even back in my mother's day and during the civil rights movement when she was sitting at the lunch counters in Arlington, Virginia. The American Nazi Party, that group, would show up and say things like blacks were inferior, diseased, smelly, those sort of things. All this around the idea that whites are superior, blacks are inferior, that they're not human in some essence, that they're subhuman, anything to degrade the individual. And so this language coming back out of that these people have a smell to them, and that these people happen to be immigrants from Haiti, that they're criminals, and so forth. It all rings the same. And now, there are folks who are in Albertville. Now, Albertville also has another problem, and it's not the Haitian immigrants, by the way. It's the attitude fostered by the city as it continues to support racist ideologies. Okay, so outside of Marshall County, outside the Marshall County courthouse, which is where Albertville is, outside the Marshall County courthouse, a Confederate monument stands. And it's protected by a fence. It's got a Confederate flag flying beside it. This was erected, by the way, in 1996. But the fence went up because they were afraid that people were going to vandalize this monument. It looks more like a tombstone than anything else. But they were worried that people were going to vandalize it because Alabama actually has like this anti-monument desecration law, which was created to protect monuments to the Confederacy in particular. You can say whatever you want, but that's the reason why it was created. But there are folks in Albertville who are working to counter this whole narrative. Folks like Unique Dunstan, who's the founder of the group Reclaiming Our Time. And she said, as late as the early 90s, Albertville was still 98% white. The reaction to new immigrant communities like first Hispanics and now Haitians shows how hard it is for some to accept change. She's also found it very hard for the government to accept change because she's been petitioning to have the monuments removed. Now, needless to say, a lot of this is fostered by the conspiracy theories and racist tropes of people like Trump who claim the border is being overrun by this, mob of criminals and such, even though he's the one who didn't close the border, who failed to build a wall. And then when a bipartisan immigration bill was brought forth, he petitioned successfully the Republican representatives and senators and so forth to nix the whole thing because it would look bad for him and good for Biden, nonetheless. And so this all actually kind of started when Albertville residents were seeing charter buses in Albertville wherein the Haitian immigrants were departing these charter buses. And some folks just went into overdrive. They're claiming, you see, this is proof. This is the evidence of the invasion that's taking place, when in fact it was actually one of the poultry companies that chartered the bus to help their employees. But, don't let facts get in the way of a good conspiracy theory. Now, to be fair, there probably are some housing abuses and such taking place in Albertville. How much? I don't know. But what I do know is that the solution isn't to punish those who are working the jobs that white folks don't want to work. They should be going after the landlords exploiting the Haitian immigrants and creating these abuses and unsafe living conditions. So you can say it's not about race, that it's about housing, but then you need to actually create housing solutions and not attack the victims, but the abusers themselves. But again, this is not what it's about. And some of these folks already played their hand. We have to cut off the housing. That's got to be number one. And if you stop the housing, they won't bring them here because there ain't nowhere for them to live. So don't solve the housing problem, make it so unbearable, and then punish those who are trying to live and trying to work. That's the solution. And you're only doing that against the Haitians. Okay. And some folks in Albertville are working to support the immigrants who are simply there because life isn't good where they're coming from. People don't come here because life is great at home. If life was great at home, they would stay home. We love our homes, right? But when your home's on fire, you flee and you go to some other place that is safer. That's what these Haitian immigrants are doing. And they're willing to do the work in a country that we claim is the greatest. But to some, it is only that way as long as those we don't like aren't here.